Welcome back to Sexpertease, where we keep marriages exciting and single people safe. I'm your host, the Erica Rivera, and tonight's episode is a little different because we're not talking about what happens behind closed doors. We're talking about what happens at the dinner table. The holidays are coming, and that means family gatherings, food, laughter, and sometimes those uncomfortable moments when someone crosses a line or brings up topics we'd rather avoid. But what if, instead of shrinking away, we learned how to meet those moments with confidence and calm? What if we could hold space for truth without turning the table into a battlefield? In tonight's episode, we're talking about the conversations we're not having, about body autonomy, boundaries, and respect, and how to bring them into the light with compassion. This isn't about arguing with family or proving anyone wrong. It's about finding our voice, protecting our peace, and modeling what healthy communication looks like in real life. So pour yourself a cup of tea or maybe a glass of wine, settle in, and let's explore how to navigate holiday conversations with confidence, clarity, and grace. Let's begin. So, the holiday season often brings families and friends together, but it also brings conversations we prefer to avoid, especially around bodies, relationships, and identity. We're told not to talk about sex, politics, or religion at the table. Yet those are the very topics shaping our health, safety, and humanity. Silence protects discomfort, not progress. This episode is about bringing truth back to the table with empathy and courage. Many of us shrink in these moments because we've been taught to equate politeness with passivity. But silence often allows stigma to grow unchecked. By learning to approach these conversations with curiosity, not confrontation, we begin to model a new kind of dialogue, one that makes room for honesty without hostility. The goal isn't to lecture anyone into change. It's to plant seeds of understanding. When you embody calm confidence while talking about consent, gender, or sexual wellness, you give permission for others to be curious instead of defensive. That's how cultural change starts, not through arguments, but through example. Bringing up sexuality or gender in mixed company can feel like tiptoeing through a minefield, but there's a way to do it without detonating defensiveness. And just a disclaimer. With the change of seasons, my allergies are absolutely horrible right now. So there's never a good time to have these episodes with you. I will probably sniffle and use my little Vicks inhaler, not sponsored by, but just putting that disclaimer out there. Now, where were we? Detonating defensiveness, right. The secret is framing. And I've noticed my voice has also changed because of my allergies and the change of season. But anyway, instead of debating, share personal experience or broader social context. For example, quote unquote, I've learned a lot lately about how consent isn't just sexual. It's part of everyday respect. So that kind of statement invites conversation rather than confrontation. Defensiveness usually happens when people feel cornered or shamed. But when we replace correction with connection, curiosity takes root. You're not telling them that they're wrong. You're showing them another way to see. And when the energy stays calm, people listen longer. Remember, discomfort isn't danger. It's the sound of growth beginning. You're not starting a fight, you're offering perspective. Even if the conversation ends awkwardly, the thought lingers. Seeds, they take time to sprout. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Some people are open and curious, others are committed, literally committed to misunderstanding you. Learn to discern the difference. When someone is dismissive or mocking, disengage. But if they're questioning or uncertain, that's a chance to plant a seed. The art of boundary setting means knowing when to protect your peace and when to speak up. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You don't own anyone emotional labor. Silence in that case becomes a boundary, not avoidance. It says, I value this connection enough not to fight over it. Then you can redirect energy toward those who want to learn. Your emotional safety matters more than proving a point. Choose the conversations that feel reciprocal, not draining. Influence doesn't require constant talking. Sometimes it comes from calm, grounded presence. Holidays often bring unsolicited comments, usually about your body, your weight, your love life, or your reproductive choices. These remarks, even when well-intentioned, can be deeply invasive. Reclaiming your autonomy means recognizing that you don't owe anyone explanations for how you look or live. Try using soft but firm statements like, I'd rather not talk about my body today. How have you been? Or, that's a personal choice I'm comfortable with. You're teaching boundaries without escalating conflict. You're modeling self-respect. Each time that you calmly redirect a boundary violation, you're doing subtle cultural education. You're showing that politeness and protection can coexist. That empowerment doesn't have to sound like anger. Shame thrives in silence. Many families pass it down unintentionally through avoidance, euphemisms, or punishment for curiosity. But healing that legacy begins when one person dares to break the pattern. When you say, sorry about that. When you say, we didn't talk about these things growing up, but I'm learning now, you give others permission to grow with you. Stigma loses its power when spoken aloud with compassion. You can acknowledge discomfort while staying open. I know this might feel strange to talk about, but it's important. So that type of quote, that transparency is what builds trust. You're not just ending silence for yourself, you're interrupting generations of repression. The moment you choose dialogue over denial, you become the ancestor who changed the story. Now, consent isn't only about sex. It's about emotional boundaries, family interactions, and respect for autonomy in your daily life. The same principle that applies in the bedroom, asking, listening, respecting, this all also applies At the dinner table, it's no different. Asking before hugging, before sharing photos, or giving advice all reinforces the same message that respect begins with permission. When people witness you practicing consent casually, it normalizes it. You're teaching without preaching. Children especially absorb these lessons when they see adults model bodily autonomy. Consent culture begins in small acts. The more we normalize those gestures in everyday life, the safer all of our relationships become, whether romantic, familial, and social. Sometimes the most healing phrase is, "I don't understand. Can you tell me more?" Curiosity dissolves tension faster than correction. But for curiosity to thrive, both parties must feel safe enough to be wrong. It's okay to say, "I used to think differently." It shows growth, not hypocrisy. Normalize imperfection. Everyone is learning, including you. What matters most is the willingness to listen with empathy and speak with humility. That's how we turn awkwardness into awareness. Respectful curiosity isn't passive, it's powerful. It transforms conversations into collaborations where learning happens on both sides of the table. Older relatives may see sexual health or identity through a moral lens rather than an educational one. Okay, so remember, they were taught in fear and silence. When you respond with empathy instead of frustration, you shift the emotional tone from confrontation to compassion. Try phrases like, I get that, I get why that might sound new or uncomfortable. Most of us weren't taught this growing up. This validates their feelings while gently introducing new information. Empathy doesn't mean argument, or should I say agreement. It doesn't mean agreement. It means understanding the context of someone's resistance. Healing generational gaps is really, really slow work. But every gentle conversation helps dismantle the shame that once silenced that previous generation. Be super patient. You're speaking to someone's inner child, not just their adult defenses. Cultural norms often dictate what can and cannot be discussed. In some households, the very mention of sex itself, just that word, is taboo. Yet every culture holds ancient wisdom about love, fertility, and connection, right? It's just been buried under centuries of control. But reintroducing these topics respectfully, we're not, or should I say, by reintroducing these topics respectfully, we're not betraying our heritage. We're just reclaiming it. Use storytelling rather than statistics. And I'm actually kind of bad at that. I love statistics. But use storytelling rather than statistics. Share how open communication improved your own well-being or relationships. Cultural pride can coexist with modern understanding. It's not westernization, it's evolution. When we approach sexual health from a lens of cultural respect and not rebellion, even the most traditional relatives can begin to soften. You become the bridge between past and progress. So, how do we navigate holidays with trauma awareness? For survivors of sexual violence, family gatherings can be very triggering, especially if abusers or enablers are present. And unfortunately, you guys, like, that happens more often than we think it does. So plan ahead. Identify safe exits, trusted allies, and self-soothing tools before the event. Empower yourself with choice, okay? You have choice. You're not obligated to attend anything that jeopardizes your space or your peace. Partners or friends can support by checking in discreetly. Do you want to step outside for a breather? Trauma-informed care means being attuned without drawing attention. The goal isn't to make the holidays perfect, it's to make them survivable and ideally gently healing. Choosing peace over performance is an act of radical self-respect. All right, so we're going to talk about burnout a little bit because this happens. Advocates often feel pressured to educate everyone, everywhere, me included. But emotional labor has limits. You don't have to be the family's resident therapist. Yeah, I'm talking to myself a little bit. See, I am learning with you. Rest is also activism. Let silence or laughter be your boundary when it's needed. Remind yourself that your worth isn't tied to your productivity, even in advocacy. Taking breaks keeps your message compassionate, not resentful. You can't pour empowerment from an empty cup. I usually say to pour from your saucer. Think about that. The overflow. Protecting your energy ensures you'll still have it for the spaces that truly value your voice. Choose those rooms intentionally. Younger relatives often notice your openness and feel safer asking questions because of it. That's impact. You don't have to give them a lecture, just model authenticity. When they see you handle sensitive topics calmly, they learn that their bodies and emotions are not shameful. If you can, create micro moments of mentorship. Recommend a book, a safe online resource, or simply say, "You can always ask me if you're curious." That invitation alone can change someone's life. Your courage builds bridges that outlive the dinner conversation. You're teaching a generation how to talk about intimacy with honesty and grace. When tension rises, humor and humility can be your allies. A light chuckle, or "we can talk about something else if that's too spicy," keeps the tone gentle. Humor diffuses while shame is what hardens. A little laughter makes learning land softer. Even if the conversation doesn't go perfectly, your composure becomes the takeaway. Your composure becomes the takeaway. People remember how you made them feel more than what you said. Calmness is contagious. Sometimes the most effective educators aren't the loudest. They're the ones who model comfort in discomfort. Every difficult conversation teaches you something about others and about your own boundaries. Celebrate that growth. You're learning how to navigate resistance while staying rooted in your truth. Healing collective shame isn't instant work. It's generational. But each time you speak with empathy instead of fear, you move the needle forward. Give yourself grace. You're not just having conversations, you're transforming culture, one table at a time. If this season brings you both joy and discomfort, this season change brings me discomfort. But anyways, if this season brings you both joy and discomfort, you're not alone. Remember, the goal isn't to fix everyone. It's to stay authentic while protecting your peace. Courage looks quiet sometimes. It looks like walking away without guilt or staying calm while others project discomfort. As you head into the holidays, choose connection over correction, compassion over control, and curiosity over conflict. These small choices shape the world we all deserve. And for those ready to go deeper, please visit my Patreon, patreon.com/the Erica Rivera, for the Intimacy Insight Tip Sheet that will go out about 15 minutes after this episode ends. This is a guide to navigating holiday conversations about body autonomy and boundaries with confidence. I actually release an Intimacy Insight Tip Sheet after every single episode on my Patreon. We always dig deeper into these conversations. We have some behind the scenes content. And for those who simply want to support for a nominal fee of $5 a month, we also give you shout outs on our social media highlights. All right. Well, thank you for spending your evening with me on Sexpertease. Take care of your peace and lead with empathy. And I'll see you next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.